Yeah, I think probably overall good matchup for both teams. I know the Yankees and Brian had mentioned that obviously they're looking for impact left-hand bat, and obviously Juan fit very well for them. And I think from our standpoint, the ability to add to the four arms to the pitching staff, pitchers that we think have both ceiling and also will be able to pitch for us this year and compete for time this year in our rotation. And adding a catcher, that goes with Campusano, goes with Sullivan, and shores up a position for us. At the end of the day, I think the combination of those two things really added up for us.
How hard is it to trade with Juan Soto at this time?
Yeah, I mean it's again like trading, putting impact, A lane, perennial All Star, Hall of Fame type player. Those are you like when they're acquiring those type of players for sure. But again, I think for us, looking at our roster, our team, a lot of different ways to go win games. We've talked about it as a group overall. Over the course of the last few months, getting ready for the off season. We needed pitching. We knew we had the free agents, and some free agent defections here this off season, and just kind of round out the roster. And again, get some pitchers that from our perspective, they're going to be with us for the next 4 or 5 years, and a group that we can build with. So. Yeah, it's very difficult to make a deal where we're trading a player the caliber of Juan Soto, but if we did that, we wanted to make sure we shored up a bunch of needs. We were able to get some depth with quality. I mean, I think we'll talk about it, I'm sure, but Michael King, Drew Thorpe, just to name two, we think really highly of these guys.
Jay, I guess I asked you some of the other day, but now that it's complete, you probably think you've got the opportunity to use it here. Is there still some sort of sense of like disappointment that you couldn't see this through, just given how important it is in the first place to acquire talent like that?
Yeah, no, I think for us, we saw it as the potential to have 3 pennant races, but with Juan in play and maybe more. But I think even from the time we made the deal, both internally in baseball operations, myself with Peter Seidler at the time, we understood that you could also pivot. I mean, that's just part of having elite players. Is that there's always interest for elite players and premium type talent, and I think we understood that. So. For us to get, 2 pennant races with Juan Soto, get to the LCS, watch the season he had last year. He was a tremendous player last year, him playing 162 games. But now also, from our standpoint, be able to move Juan to, get players that hopefully, impact us for the next 5 or 6 years. At the end of the day, you can look at it a lot of different ways. We think, ultimately 2 years of an elite player like Juan, doing some nice things as a team, and then obviously being able to have a move that hopefully impacts us throughout the rest of the decade. I think that was just something we decided we couldn't pass up.
How much did this help you free up money to make some more necessary moves?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely. Again, like I think the exercise always is you have a budget and you're trying to make make the team work within the budget. It definitely gives us 2 things. I think some flexibility, and then also just some clarity on what the rest of the off season looks like. So I think part of the discussion in the last few days was, do you wait, do you hold out, and see what's going on in the market? And I think we did I think our group did a good job of flushing out different options, et cetera. But it also gives us some clarity on there's a lot of good players out there, both trade and free agency, that we want to be at least be able to participate and see if we can add to our team, and this deal enables us to kind of move on with the off season. Yeah, I think we're going to keep looking to add starting pitching. I think what we're starting to do, though, is compile a lot of arms that we like. I think obviously with Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, who made their debut last year in the big leagues, you get some guys that first year in New York, first year in the major leagues in the AL East, showed that they're major league caliber pitchers, and now it's going to be up to us to continue their development and keep having them grow in our pitching staff. But I think also we're starting to get some depth in numbers. The same thing with some of the group that's coming behind that group. So you start to look up, and again, you need a lot of starting pitching to get through a season. We're starting to get to where we feel like there may be 7, 8, 9 deep as we go through a year. But we're gonna, over the next couple of weeks, I think we're gonna still try to add some more pitching as we go.
Once King got into the rotation with the Yankees this past year, what did you see from him from a scouting perspective about his repertoire and how it plays in a rotation?
Yeah, it was really exciting. I mean, I think all of our scouts that were going, had gone in really in the last few years. I talked about as one of the more impactful relievers, and combination of stuff with command. Really, from a two-seam fastball, the wide slider, the changeup. He's got multiple pitches and weapons, and then we probably got, I don't know, 3 or 4 looks at him down the stretches from when he started. And he's one of the better relievers in the league last year, and honestly, in the last 2 months of the season, he's one of the top starters. So, I think we're going to explore the starting option with him. It sounds like it's something he's always wanted to do, has done in the past, at least in the minor leagues. And he was very good at it here this year. So I think we're excited about looking at a rotation with Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, Michael King, and building on that.
What does this move do for the long term, given that Juan had 1 year left before free agency, and pretty much everyone you got has several?
Yeah, I think again, like we've mentioned a lot. I mean, like with Juan, in terms of from an extension standpoint, obviously it's great when you're able to sign players long term, but there's cost of doing that as well. And I think for us, the ability to add players that are controllable, that we have, again, that we think are going to perform well, be with us for multiple years. I think from a big picture perspective, it was a move that just opened up a lot of different avenues for us, and definitely was part of our thought process.
How aggressive was Cash for the last few days to try to get this done?
Yeah, they were aggressive. I mean, I think they clearly made it known that that this was a deal and a player. I mean, I think Brian's pretty direct, and I think they were pretty clear. And again, I think everybody understood they had a need. Juan is an incredible player and fit the need really well. So when you have 2 teams that line up, and you have a team that's calling you consistently, you usually get a feel that this is something that has a chance to happen. Ultimately, hopefully it's a deal that works out for both sides.
You've made it clear that you believe the way to build a championship team is to stack elite players, and you just set one of them away. Why do you think that you're still a contender?
Yeah, I mean, I think with our club, you look at a roster, and this is the conversation we've had in the room the last few days. You look at a roster with Fernando Tatis, Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado. And then, again, like not just, three players that are, some of the top players in their positions in the game. Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, but again, guys like, Jay Cronenworth and Ha-Seong Kim. And then I think the exciting part for us is like looking for this opens up some opportunity for some guys too that we feel highly about in our system. So, a Jacob Marcy, a Jackson Merrill, some of the younger pitching. Those guys are going to have to earn their opportunities, but you start to open up some spots for that group and have a little different blend. And you always need elite players, but I think we feel like some players coming through the system, potentially the ability to go back on the free agent market or the trade market. And I think we feel like from a pitching standpoint, we're going to have a few guys in this deal that are going to be real performers for us this year on the mound.
And in talking about Marcy, do you look at him as a potential center fielder or more likely a corner if he makes the club?
Yeah, no, I think we're going to give him an opportunity to play center field. So we'll see. He's had half a season in Double-A, the fall league. Hopefully, help speed up his development. But I think the message to him will be come in, be ready to compete. He'll definitely be one of the names on our board. And again, it'll be he has the ability to play all 3 spots, but I think the primary spot will be center field.
What is the state of your outfield tonight? You mentioned Marcy, obviously now Soto, of course, you also mentioned Merrill in the outfield, not what you've done in the outfield.
Yeah, I think again, I think an area that we'll look to try to shore up here in the next couple of weeks. I think Marcy will be part of conversations, at least from a competition standpoint. But I think one of the questions with Fernando, the times we've talked to him in the off season, I think he looks at right field as kind of finding a home there. Right field in Petco is a big field. It's kind of like a second center field. You have the advantage of his arm. Obviously, won the Platinum Glove out there. But Mike Schilt, myself, we'll have some more conversations here in the next couple of weeks about what the configuration looks like, and I think there's still, some additions that we can make along with some guys coming up in the system that'll factor in for us in the outfield.
Just to make sure that he's in center.
We'll talk about it. I mean, he can pretty much play anywhere, so maybe not catcher, but he'll tell you can pitch short, second. So I think the center field thing, you never want to say no to somebody like, Fernando's got great talent, athleticism, instinct. He obviously picked up right field quickly. So we've got that he gives you the ability to be flexible and do different things. So we'll have more of that conversation for sure, and he'll know where he's going to go play. My guess is we'll talk to him more here in the next few days, and heading into the next couple of weeks, he'll have a good sense of where it's going to be. he's capable of playing anywhere, so you don't want to say it's only this spot or that spot, but we'll let Mike and myself have more of those conversations here in the next few days.
As you look at the roster, AJ, how important is it to add potentially some late inning bullpen as you look at the other pieces that you've added and those so that you have to get?
Yeah, no, I think with the pen, with the bullpen, that's again, like we've talked about, pitching, starting rotation, and then, tweaking the pen as well and looking to add somebody that can pitch late in the game, 7, 8, 9, 8, 9. So that's an area that, again, this deal enables us to kind of look forward and start filling some of those holes, see what's out there on the market, and try to go act on it. And I think we'll talk about some pen pieces as well.
Did you ever offer one an extension either recently or earlier than that?
Yeah, nothing officially. I mean, I know Peter was having conversation with Scott Boras. Same with myself. We never really got to the point where it was, hey, this is the exact number. This is what it looks like. This is a back and forth from a negotiation standpoint. I think we had a general sense, in terms of these are things that were important to Juan. I know Scott this off season, it was more about, hey, Juan is totally comfortable in San Diego. On a 1-year situation, he would be comfortable playing there. So I think we, again, it wasn't like a concrete, hey, this is exactly what it is for us. But, I think we understood kind of the dynamic. A lot of players like to get to free agency, like to use that last year of, as a 5+ season and get to that point, kind of usually use it as a springboard to free agency. So, ultimately we kind of weighed all of that out and decided to make the deal.
How does this affect the balance of power in that division, and how has that evolved since you were in the LCS? Obviously, you lost the spirit of what you team.
Yeah, NL West is always a dogfight. It's a great division. You have obviously the reigning national league champion with the Diamondbacks. The Giants obviously I think are poised to make moves, add players. It looks like, and they've only a few years off of winning 108, 109 games, and you've got the Dodgers, and from that standpoint that that were ahead of us last year. So yeah, I think we understand we've got our work cut out for us for sure. But again, like a lot of different ways to look at building a club. Obviously, pitching, defense, we weren't good enough last year overall, So I think I don't think we're done here this offseason. I think we'll look at some different moves. But you've got to be really good to win in the NL West. And, I think from our standpoint, we're gonna do what we can to balance our roster out, have a really complete roster, because that's what you need going into a season and a stretch with the NL West next year.
AJ, what juncture did you think you had to trade some?
I don't think it's ultimately like, hey, have to trade any particular. I think we looked at a lot of different combos in the last few weeks. I think our group is always creative and looking at all different possibilities. Different players that we have on our roster. Hey, would we move those players and keep Juan? Would we move those players and look to do an extension with Juan? Ultimately kept coming back to Juan. Just again, he's one of the best players in the game of baseball. There's a lot of interest. There were teams that were talking about him. And again, I think the lineup with the Yankees in terms of a team that had real pitching for us that fit what we were trying to do and also enables us to do some other things. So I think we've talked about from a payroll standpoint. Every year we kind of come in with a set. Hey, this is the number, and then are able to make some adjustments based on what's out in the market. And I think also like this year going into it, it was we were at a high point last year. I think we're going to run very competitive payrolls over the next 5 years. And I think we're going to have a very competitive payroll this year. But it's just like what's the best way to use that dollars, that player, and ultimately we decided to go add 5 players that are I think are going to potentially play on our roster this year versus one very elite player, and also Trent Grisham, who's a really good center fielder as well. I think we'll see how it goes, but I think adding those players right now and then being in a spot to do some more things and round out a club, that's ultimately the route we went with.
Could you offer a little insight on how many different teams were actually actively exchanging names with you on Juan since you arrived here?
Yeah, we had 10 teams that checked in on us on Juan, especially since it started getting a little bit more publicity in the last week or two that we'd at least listen on Juan and see where that went. So there were 10 teams that checked in. Like anything, you get to usually like most it's probably about 3 that are really kind of at the final table having conversations. So that was some of the activity over the last few weeks. Yeah, I think again he's a really exciting pitching prospect. I think he's was a from college Team USA player and highly acclaimed college pitcher, and he went right into pro baseball and had a tremendous year this past year. I think he was runner up to Robbie Snelling in our group, our minor league pitcher, who was the minor league pitcher of the year. So I think two of the top pitching prospects in the game, and from a performance standpoint, they had two of the best seasons last year. In our organization right now, it's he's got tremendous command. It's again, like, he has 4-pitch mix, the fastball changeup or the two top pitches, but a slider, cutter, curveball, and he's a pitcher. And a strike throw, and somebody that repeats his delivery, makes pitches, fields his position. We feel like, I think it was 5 walks, 44 strikeouts at the end of the season in Double-A. So he went to a Double-A level, and and just hold his own, kind of dominate at a Double-A level. So he'll come into camp. We'll have that conversation with him, and again, college pitcher, has done well, really good makeup, strike thrower, somebody that's pretty polished with an elite changeup. I think for us, when we looked at it, we didn't look at this as 3 years down the road. I think he's somebody that can impact us this year. Yeah, I think I'll call Ruben Niebla here in a second, and I think he's got some new pitchers to work with, so I think he'll be very excited. And I think with both Johnny Brito and Randy Vasquez, I think what we talked, the attraction for us is shorter roll. They could the stuff is shown, like when they've one inning, stuff takes a jump, and they could go there. But also have the ability to stretch out and give us starter innings, which they did for the Yankees last year. So I think that'll be part of the conversation a little bit, like what else we're able to add to the roster in the next few weeks. But they have the ability to do either. They're really versatile pieces. I think as we go to build our staff, I think their ability to do different things, pitch multiple innings, pitch in different roles, I think that's going to serve us well for our club this year.
You mentioned a lot of teams being interested. You were able to get a deal done here with sort of what's been a slow-moving market so far. Did that become an impetus so you could free up some of that money to then spend later on in what has been a slow-moving market so far?
Yeah, I think like anything. I mean, it wasn't like a set deadline or anything like that we put on. Hey, we've got to want to do something or have to do something here at the winter meetings. It was just kind of, again, like when we get to a target. We try to, again, we do our homework. We have a pretty good feel for what's out there, what's in the market, what other teams are willing to do. I do think a little bit of like the ability to move and do some different things, which may or may not come through in the next couple of days or weeks. But just having the ability to have those conversations and do it without a bunch of different possibilities that may or may not add up for us, having a little bit more certainty. I think that was all part of the decision. The main part was we liked the deal. We got to a point where we felt like we had a deal that hit a lot of our needs, and with players that we really liked, and some guys with some real upside. So ultimately, we moved on it.
Time for one or two more. Just stepping back on this Juan Soto. What's it like to have a trade chip like that? Even though it's just 1 year of that, knowing you get so many players helping you in the future.
Yeah, I think a little bit exciting and disappointing. I mean, you're talking about a future Hall of Famer, so I think we've kind of been on both ends of it. I think acquiring players like that, and just Juan specifically. I think he's extremely impactful. I think every at bat, the ability to grind the AB, grind the pitch. We saw it last year, game 162 in Chicago, and he was treating it like it was a playoff game. That's why he's the hitter he is and the performer he is. And I think all of us, had a lot of respect for Juan coming into this. I told him that here just a few hours ago. He's got a lot of fans in San Diego. Watching a Juan Soto at bat, the way he dominates the strike zone, it's entertaining. And, obviously he's somebody that's going to do a lot of great things here. And hopefully, again, it's a deal that works both ways, and we're seeing him in the postseason next year, and because he's always a challenge to face any time.
What's the upside and the possibilities with the guy you got in the World 5?
Yeah, I think with Kolek, he's a guy that we feel like took some steps this past season. Went to the bullpen. It's strong body, a guy that we think the fastball is going to play. A strike thrower. Again, he went down and pitched some winter ball. We had some familiarity with our pitching coordinator that aware of him with Seattle. He'll come in and get a chance to compete. It's all part of it, like adding more arms, but he's pretty polished, and ultimately he's going to come in and, as you try to look and, hey, how do we, hit some of those pen needs that are talked about. Our scouts, our group, Pete Young, they do a good job in the Rule 5. They do a good job, scouting pitching, and felt like he was somebody that, again, like trying to kind of figure out some other options for the bullpen. He was somebody we felt like was worth it in the Rule 5 draft.
Thank you, AJ. Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
AJ.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
AJ,